staying in Connecticut. My husband is actually from California, and he moved to Connecticut to work at Cigna. And I told him, sorry, honey, you're stuck because my family's here. I will only move if you take my whole family with. So I am in Connecticut because we're not convincing my whole family. But how I've actually used some of the stuff that I've learned at Eastern for the community, I have a daughter who is almost 10, and she loves cheerleading. She has it's just a passion of hers. And her coach was leaving, and so I was asked if I would step in because they knew that I had some classroom management skills because I was in school to become a teacher. So I said, okay, yes, I have sucker written across my forehead. I will come and do this. And what I found was that as I was working with the children, I was really drawing from the experiences at Eastern that were teaching me how to work with the children that I would use in a classroom. And so instead of standing in front of the girls and yelling, pay attention, which is what the other coaches generally do, I was doing all my little bump, 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 and they would all go bump, bump, and they would be silent and looking at me, and I was like, yes! So I became the head coach this past season, and I brought the girls to the NCFL championship, and they placed first. So we couldn't have done it without those classroom management skills that I had learned in the classroom at Eastern, and reading through all of those books and discussing, okay, what would you do if you have a child who is, clearly not listening despite the fact that you've tried several times to get their attention. So really I've taken that and tried to use it to help all of these students and all of these children who left cheerleading at the end of the season so proud, not only because they had won, but because they had all gotten up into their fulls and their halves for their stunts, and just the abilities that they were able to come up with, it was just amazing. So
I most certainly hate to be the Debbie Downer in the group, but I don't plan on staying in Connecticut. I have two women in my life. One is 69, the other is 63, who made a deal with me, and I called her my grandmothers. They said, you have 4 years up there and you're done. As soon as you are done and you graduate, you're coming back closer to home. Little do they know I'm not going back home. But I feel as if what I've learned from my time here in Connecticut can be better used in other places as well. And I feel as if we have communities and we have support groups and surrogates and part of our communities and our institutions who are there for the long term and who are there and who have a real investment into making the students and also making sure that the institution is ready to go on day one of each semester. And I think that what we can do, no matter where we are across the country or across the globe, is make sure that they have the resources needed to make that happen, to help educate others so that they can also go out and make sure that the rest of the world is as culturally diverse and aware as we were when I left as well.
We might just have to kidnap Corey and keep him here. Yeah. So, are there any other questions? If not, I would like to invite President Gray, who's president of CSU, who has a few remarks.
Maybe I'll use the mic. Is it on? Well, first of all, I want to say many things. But thank you to the committee who put this together. I know it doesn't come about easily. And if it's okay, when you put this together next year, if you want to call upon our office's help, please do so. Because we have a nice crowd here tonight. I would like to see you be able to expand that crowd by tenfold next year. And if we can provide some assistance out of the Board of Regents office, we will. Obviously, for everyone who came here tonight on the panel, thank you. I always say that I'm a teacher, and too often in our administrative roles and the faculty roles, you get so caught up in the daily activities, it's like a gerbil on that thing, and you kind of forget what it is you do and why you do it. Thank you. The stories and your articulation makes me somewhat wondering about how I'm going to fare compared to many of you who soon will be college presidents and other things. But really the two or three things that struck me with great pride as you were talking this evening is about the learning communities that our 4 universities have. And what I mean by that, we heard stories about outstanding faculty in the classroom activities, but we also heard others who work for the university that had a major impact on your success. The Veterans Office, some mentors and counselors and others, and I think really the goal of our 4 universities, which is being achieved, is that every person who comes to work here each and every day is dedicated to one thing, passionately dedicated to student success. And you're seeing that here. And of course, my job as president is then to even ramp that up a little bit more. And our pledge to you is we're going to keep doing that. I found the question about what would you say to the Board of Regents very intriguing, because the Board of Regents currently, as many of you know, are very engaged in our plan for the future, XLCT. And actually some of the responses that you came up with tonight, I'll share where we're at with some of that. XLCT is based upon 3 fundamental facts. 1 is student access. 2 is affordability. And number 3 is unmatched quality. I believe we can be there in the not too distant future. Making sure that people from Kansas and other places can come here and get a quality education. Access. You know, many of you know that a week ago I had the privilege of going down to Washington, D.C. and participating in President Obama's summit on education, which was dedicated to bringing to the public's attention the lack of college completion for individuals who are born into the lower 25 percentile of our economic strata. If you're born into that strata, your chances of ever getting a college degree are about 9%. But some of the things I heard were remarkable, and I took some pride in that we're trying to deal with them here in Connecticut. The number one obstacle for individuals trying to get a college education in the 25% lower quarter, the number one obstacle, the FAFSA form. The form. Now you think maybe somebody say maybe we should simplify the form, and maybe they will. But some of the colleges who have dedicated themselves to improving access are going to spend a lot of time and energy on helping interested students complete the FAFSA form. And then the other one was having to pay $100 for an application fee. Things that are controllable, and as I heard someone talk about access this evening, that became apparent. The other part of access, which all of you know, is that we cannot drive you away because of a price tag. Now, one of the things we say to many people in our system is that ConSCU has by far the lowest tuition rate of any college in the state of Connecticut. But how do you keep that rate low and maybe even someday going like that? And I think as our new plan comes out in the not too distant future, you'll be quite pleased with the tuition strategy that we have for next year as well as the years to come. So it's a challenge for we who work in administration all the time, and I get hung up talking to legislators, but it's such a pleasure to actually come out and listen to these stories this evening. I congratulate each of you because you had a rougher time to get to where you are, and it took a lot of supporting people to get you there than I had. I had a piece of cake. I kind of closed through the whole thing, probably. Didn't have to worry about much. But in each case, I'm sure you could start to list not only faculty but staff at these universities who have helped you to get there. And for the people sitting here tonight, I hope you go home and have a very good night's sleep, because you can see the testimony that these folks are providing. And as a public institution in Connecticut, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to educate and prepare tomorrow's Connecticut. And even though some of our students go away, about 80% of our graduates stay in this state. 96% of our students who are in our seats right now are Connecticut residents, and of course a majority of the students who graduate from high school. We are Connecticut's public education. And what you're seeing tonight are the products of what you all have been involved with, and indeed, you have helped to make Connecticut better. So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gray. So now we have more time to be in the room, and there's still food, so I invite you all to get something to eat and mix and mingle and have a close-up conversation with one of these students. Thank you.